Well, that was the Commodores getting us off to a great start. This second hour on this very wet and windy Sunday morning, but it's not wet and windy in the studio because we've been joined by Gina and Debs this afternoon. This afternoon, where am I?
Where have you gone?
This morning, welcome.
Morning. Thank you so much for having us on.
Hi, thank you.
So we're really looking forward to chatting to you later and finding out a little bit more about yourself and the kind of work that you do in Exeter. So we're really excited.
Thank you so much.
But before that, we got a fun fact from Richard.
Well, if we don't have some nice visitors in, we usually spend the next hour looking at what's been happening on this day in the world over the last decade and even hundreds of years. But we're going to go back to 1925 because on this day in 1925, Paul Newman was born. And one of Paul Newman's very many famous films was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And if you're going to play a piece of music from that, it just has to be Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head.
And they certainly are today.
They are indeed.
Raindrops are falling on my head, and just like the guy whose feet are too big for his bed, nothing seems to fit. Those raindrops are falling on my head, they keep falling. So I just did me some talking to the sun, and I said I didn't like the way he got things done, sleeping on the job. Those raindrops are falling on my head, they keep falling. But there's one thing I know, the blues they send to meet me won't defeat me. It won't be long till happiness steps up to greet me. Raindrops keep falling on my head, but that doesn't mean my eyes will soon be turning red. Crying's not for me, 'cause I'm never gonna stop the rain by complaining, because I'm free. Nothing's worrying me. It won't be long till happiness steps up to greet me. Raindrops keep falling on my head, but that doesn't mean my eyes will soon be turning red. Crying's not for me, 'cause I'm never gonna stop the rain by complaining, because I'm free. Nothing's worrying me.
BJ Thomas and Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head, and they certainly are today, as I say. But we are warm in the studio because we've got company. We like company.
We have, yay! Yeah.
We love company.
And we have Gina Albert with us this morning, and friend. So, Gina, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your friend.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you about Debs first, but the reason Debs is here is she's my very, very close friend, and she's come up from Cornwall for the night, and I asked you, Julia and Richard, if you didn't mind her coming along today.
Not at
The
all.
more the merrier.
Yeah, to say a quick hello, Debs.
Hi, everyone.
So Debs and I used to, well, we've been friends for 25 years, and we used to work in a estate agency together, but I changed my track of working life many moons ago now, but we're still great friends. Are you hearing me okay, everyone? Yay. Sorry, I'm not so close to the mic. So
You're
anyway,
fine.
yes.
Yeah, we've got you.
Great. All good. So I am extremely passionate about dementia. I lead the Exeter Dementia Action Alliance and have been for the last 10 years. So I go into organisations and I deliver information sessions to organisations. They could be any organisations. It's not just in the health and social care sector. I think what's important is to just raise that awareness and reduce the stigma. And if we do that in community, it's like anything in life, then people feel more able to talk about it. And I do that, and then I also support and advocate with families in the community. So I support them in a social way. So I take them out and just help them, and I also help families. Oh goodness, navigate the very, very complex health and social care system. And I think, to be honest, you pretty much need a PhD to do that, because I am struggling, and I'm quite well connected. So, and I love what I do.
That
Brilliant,
comes across.
brilliant. Yeah. But first of all, what actually brought you to Exeter? Why
I was born and
Exeter?
brought up here in May 1970.
Oh, you're a rarity, I think.
Yeah. So I'm 55 this year. So I was born on the 31st of May 1970 in Exeter. And although was born and brought up here, when I was in my early 20s, I was in my first sort of career, 10 years of my career was based in hotel and catering management. So I worked in hotels in the area, and then I moved up to London and spent a couple of years up there. I went to Reading, I went to Bracknell, and I went up to Suffolk. So I spent probably about 5 or 6 years away from Exeter. Because, I don't know, I wasn't inspired by it, even though I was born and brought up here. And then, of course, like many people, you go away from it and then you appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So I came back about 6 years later and I've never looked back.
Good.
So,
good.
yeah.
Well, it's probably time for a first piece of music.
Yes.
So perhaps you could tell us what your choice is and why.
Yeah, so first of all, I'll tell you what my choice is and then I'll tell you why. Yeah, so I have chosen Christine Aguilera, The Voice Within. And as just generally with music, I adore music and I'm good with rhythm, but as I was growing up and still now, I struggle to hear the lyrics. So sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. But like, for example, one of the songs that I loved years ago when I was a teenager was Alison Moyer, and I remember it was Honey for the Bees was within the chorus, and I used to think it was Hungry for the Beast. And I've done that with so much music. But quite a few years ago, I listened to the lyrics for The Voice Within, and I thought this really, really resonates with me, because if you really listen to it, my perception of it is listen to the voice within, which is, you could say, your inner child, your intuition, and that will guide you. And that's what inspires me with this song, listening to intuition.
Here we go.
Young girl, don't cry. I'll be right here when your world starts to fall. Young girl, it's alright. Your tears will dry. You'll soon be free to fly. Ooh, when you're safe inside your room, you tend to dream of a place where nothing's harder than it seems. No one ever wants or bothers to explain of the heartache life can bring and what it means when there's no one else. Look inside yourself like your oldest friend. Just trust the voice within, and then you'll find the strength that will guide your way. You'll learn to begin to trust that voice within. Oh, young girl, don't hide. You'll never change if you just run away. Ooh, oh, yeah. Young girl, just hold tight. The sooner you're gonna see your brighter day. Oh, now in a world where innocence is quickly claimed, it's so hard
Smooth transition there.
Yeah, slight addition, yes. The Voice Within, sung by Christina Aguilera, which was Gina's first choice. Lovely piece of music. We don't get to play Christina Aguilera very often,
No,
do we?
We don't. Well, we are talking to Gina Awad this morning, and we're really pleased that you joined us this Sunday morning. And you mentioned earlier that you came back to Exeter, born and bred in Exeter, came back to Exeter. So what are the best things about Exeter then, and this part of Devon?
I love Exeter because it's just got a mixed vibe, and I think that being close to the river, which I love. I mean, I live quite close to the river, but also very close to town as well. So it's easy accessible, and I love my beautiful little dog River, who's a nearly 6-year-old cockapoo. So we often go down there and have a nice walk around. There's some lovely parks around. There's some great eateries. Because I've got a background in hotels, I'll often go for a coffee in a hotel and do some work. I do remote working, but also stuff in the community. But I find it very difficult to work from home. I like to have the buzz around me, but also be able to focus and be introverted and really focus on being creative. And I can't do that at home for some reason. Some people can, but I'm not one of those people. So I love the different places that I can go around Exeter. And also I love the accessibility to, like, the beach. We're so close to the beach, Exmouth, Sidmouth, Dawlish, near to Cornwall. Jump on the motorway to London, you know, and I love travel. But I also love going out of Exeter.
So favourite places to travel then?
Well, I mean, I mean, there's lots of favourite places, but if I'm thinking sort of radically different, I think Asia for me. I mean, I absolutely adore Cambodia. So in 2017, I've got a travel buddy actually called Eric, who I don't think he's tuning in, but hopefully he'll catch up with it. But he's nearly 80, and for the last 10 years, we've gone to different places, but we've done it in a group adventure. So it's been with other people that we've not known before, but it's enabled us to go right across the country to really explore it within a group setting with someone that really knows their way around, but also off the beaten track. So in 2017, we did 2 weeks around Cambodia. Then in 2019, we did 2 weeks around Vietnam. And by the way, these experiences don't have to be expensive. Everybody, how did you get all the money for that? Well, you sometimes have to save for it. And if you set your heart on something, there's no reason why you can't do it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Vietnam was the second one. And then we did Morocco and literally went to the desert. We went to the Atlas Mountains. And we've also done China, the Great Wall of China. And then in 2012, I did 3 weeks voluntary work with an organisation called Discover Adventure, I think, and went to Ghana in West Africa and supported vulnerable children. And they used to come up to me every morning when I used to go to their little makeshift school and say, Mama Gigi, and have their little bags of rice and... Oh, it was just so moving. I can picture it. And they called it we'll call it the land of smiles because it was a beautiful place. So, yeah, I love travel.
And I think travel helps to enjoy when you come back, doesn't it? Because whenever we come back, and we're fortunate enough to travel quite a bit, but as soon as we reach Devon, you suddenly realise that it's quite a nice place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think also when you do travel, especially to radically different cultures, it really makes you grateful for things like a toilet, you know, a shower, temperature of water, heating in the winter on this day today, you know. So
even clean drinking water.
Absolutely, because so many places you've got to drink bottled water, and we take that for granted, don't we?
Thank you.
Yeah, well, that should lead us into the next piece of music that you've chosen. So what is that and why?
Billy Joel, Piano Man. It's got to be Billy Joel by Piano Man. I absolutely love Billy Joel. I think the Piano Man is one of my favourite tunes from a child growing up. I used to listen to it. But I kind of, when I think about the lyrics, and again, I've struggled to hear them all when I was young, but this is one where you can really hear the lyrics, and I really take it in, and I can imagine being in, I can envisage this sort of smoky basement bar in, say, New York or whatever, and the regulars coming in, and Billy Joel, Piano Man.
Well, it is lined up specially for you now. Here we go.
Thank you.
9 o'clock on a Saturday. The regular crowd shuffles in. There's an old man sitting next to me, making love to his tonic and gin. He says, son, can you play me a memory? I'm not really sure how it goes, but it's sad and it's sweet, and I knew it complete when I wore a younger man's clothes. La 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 da da da, la la da 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 da. Sing us a song, you're the piano man. Sing us a song tonight. Well, we're all in the mood for a melody, and you've got us feeling alright. Now John at the bar is a friend of mine. He gets me my drinks for free, and he's quick with a joke or to light up your smoke, but there's some place that he'd rather be. He says, Bill, I believe this is killing me, as a smile ran away from his face. Well, I'm sure that I could be a movie star if I could get out of this place. Oh, la 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 da da da, la la da 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 da. Now Paul is a real estate novelist who never had time for a wife, and he's talking with David, who's still in the Navy and probably will be for life. And the waitress is practicing politics as the businessmen slowly get stoned. Yes, they're sharing a drink they call loneliness, but it's better than drinking alone. Sing us a song, you're the piano man. Sing us a song tonight. Well, we're all in the mood for a melody, and you've got us feeling alright. It's a pretty good crowd for a Saturday, and the manager gives me a smile, 'cause he knows that it's me they've been coming to see, to forget about life for a while. And the piano, it sounds like a carnival, and the microphone smells like a beer, and they sit at the bar and put bread in my jar and say, man, what are you doing here? Oh, la 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 da da da, la la da 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 da. Sing us a song, you're the piano man. Sing us a song tonight. Well, we're all in the mood for a melody, and you've got us feeling alright.
Billy Joel and the Piano Man, and that was chosen by Gina Howard, our guest for this morning.
Some great choices coming out here,
Yay.
Gina. Thank you.
Come every week.
Well, I know that we're very keen to hear about your work in dementia, so we're going to just give you free rein now, and you can just tell us what you want to tell us.
Thank you. So, as I said earlier on at the beginning, I am really passionate about dementia. I've learnt a lot over the last 12 years. The reason this came about, so a lot of people said in the early days, what drives you? Because people just assume that you've been touched by dementia with a family member, and at that point I hadn't been. I have since, but I hadn't been at the time. So people were sort of seeing me sharing bits and pieces through the media and thinking, what is her agenda? Not that I need to have one, but I guess, there are things that drive us. I've always been interested in the human mind. I'm interested in relationships, and I studied as a counsellor in 2000. So, learning and understanding about the human mind I find fascinating. And then I set up the Alliance as a kind of response to delivering dementia information sessions, but also doing my degree in health and social care, which I started in 2011. It was part-time over 6 years. I never thought I'd be doing that. Started the first module, and it was kind of a one-off in isolation module, and then that's kind of inspired me to do more. So I continued to do, lots of other things. So I covered dementia, end of life, planning ahead, adult, and the life course, public health, all really, really fascinating topics. And my second module of choice was dementia. And I found myself doing all the work and then going off on a tangent to try and learn more about it. And then I discovered the dementia training that I could deliver, which is through dementia information sessions, delivering it in the community. But back then, 12 years ago, it was about having the resources, but also having to find people to come to the sessions and finding places like in the public arena, which would I wouldn't have to pay for because it was a voluntary role, which was quite hard back then because a lot of people, they were like, as an organisation, we haven't got time to learn about this or whatever. And of course now people realise how important it is, because there's around 900,000 people living in the UK with a diagnosis of dementia, and around 70,000 of those people are living with young onset dementia, YOD for short, which means they are diagnosed under 65. It doesn't mean they're 64, although they could be. It could be anything. It could be 30, 40. And initially that has made me think about Pauline Quirk's family sharing recently this week around her dementia diagnosis. And from what I understand, I don't know what type of dementia she has because that hasn't been made public. But it's saying now that she's obviously not going to be working in the public domain anymore. But she was actually diagnosed in 2021, which means she would be classed as somebody living with young onset dementia because she was diagnosed at the age of 61. So good for the family for sharing it, because it is really, really tough. So there's some statistics for you, but also, what I really, really am aware of, which links into my book that I wrote a couple of years ago, is the impact on the families, because it's huge. No one teaches us how to support their person living with dementia and their loved one, and you have to learn by default, and you shouldn't have to. And I think you mentioned that a friend of yours is living with dementia, and until you've been impacted with it, you can't really understand it.
Not at all,
and I think that what I'm trying to get across to people is, even if you don't know anyone living with dementia, it's useful to have the knowledge and resources, because it's very likely that one of us will have a family member or a friend that does develop dementia, and it's a disease of the brain. It is a disease of the brain, and there's not enough funding from the government for it. It's so complex. So I work with families to try and help them navigate the system, but I also deliver information sessions, and I'm just learning every day. I'm not an expert. People say, "Oh, Gina, I'm the expert in dementia." I'm not an expert. I don't live with it. The people that live with it are experts. But I have gained a lot of knowledge, and I'm very much somebody who wants to impart as much information that I can with anyone and everyone.
That's fascinating.
Well, I don't know how you would follow that with a piece of music, but I think you have chosen quite a nice piece of music.
You've chosen it.
And
I have. I've chosen a really, really fabulous, famous, iconic classical piece.
And it is my favourite classical piece, and it's by Barber, isn't it?
It
and
is,
it's the Adagio for strings, and with great delight We'll play it for you now. A very short extract from Samuel Barber's Adagio for strings. And Gina, why did you choose that piece of music?
I chose that piece of music because 8 years ago, the Alliance was chosen for a retiring collection for the Exeter Symphony Orchestra at Exeter Cathedral. So I remember sitting to the next to the Lord Mayor at the time, and I had the privilege position of sitting right at the front. And it was the Exeter Symphony Orchestra, and they started playing this, and to be right at the front of an orchestra playing this, all the hairs on my arms and body went up on, it's like, it was so moving. And in fact, I've got it. I've got 32,000 pictures on my phone that I need to do some housekeeping on. But I've got lots of videos, and I cannot delete that video because I've captured a couple of minutes of it. It's so moving. I love it.
Oh, it is.
So that's why.
Yeah.
Great choice.
Well, I'm a personal thing for me, because I want to just go quickly back to your book and having read it. It's
Thank you.
And it is such an easy read. It really is. But I'm fascinated by being keen on sport, the subject of damage to sportsmen and women from head injuries.
Yeah.
And particularly with football. And you talk about Nobby Stiles.
Yes,
in your book,
yes.
don't you?
I mean, I think, don't quote me on it, but I believe from the 1996 World Cup, I think about 5 or 6 of the players.
It is, yeah.
It is, isn't it?
1966 World Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say a minimum of 6.
5, yeah, 6 of the players have gone on to develop dementia.
Most of them have gone as well. We've lost them.
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah.
And we're not saying that it was absolutely because of heading the ball, but there's a huge, there's a lot of people that I know. John, who I work with on the book, and hopefully he'll listen in, but it was his dad, so John Stars I work with in the book, and he's doing loads and loads of campaigning around, head injury. But I think, but also back then, Richard and Julia, there was the big leather balls. Can you imagine any of us now sat here heading this great big leather hard ball?
I'm old enough to remember doing it.
Exactly.
And we tried to avoid doing it because it hurt.
Yeah.
It was wet, and it was hard, and it was heavy. And so if you didn't have to head it, you just got out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And with rugby,
the head
collisions and the head collisions.
Yeah, I was at rugby yesterday, and the impacts are huge. Yeah. Huge.
And of course you've got, I think it's Steve Thompson. He's diagnosed. He's in his early 40s, isn't he?
There's quite a big group of rugby players who getting together,
doing a lot of campaigning and activism around it. And I think it's important because obviously sport is a massive part of our culture, isn't it? It's huge, but it's how do we still make that happen and have a great time, but also protect, and also how it's regulated and all of that. And I think now, again, don't correct me because I don't know 100%, but I'm sure there is a law now with children learning football and things like that, rugby, that certainly with football, no heading of the ball under the age of 18. I think it might be 16 because of the brain development.
Yeah.
They say a brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25, I think.
Yeah.
And you know, also with the dementia diagnosis, they say you can't get an absolutely specific diagnosis until post-mortem. Obviously, Nobby Stiles was diagnosed with dementia, and then they found out he had CTE. I'm so sorry, John, if you do tune in, but I can't remember the long pronunciation of CTE, but I know you do. It's in my head, but I can't remember it. But which is basically highlighting that the brain is damaged from impact.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Head impact, and then also there's boxing and things like that. All these
this
things
doesn't just end there, does it?
No. And I think so. So there's obviously that element, and obviously you're into sport, Richard, and things like that. But I think it's important to say there's so many dementia types, and we see dementia as an umbrella term. So, for example, you see dementia as the top of the umbrella, and then you would imagine the spokes as being a dementia type. There's over 150 types of dementia.
Wow.
So the most common, which you'll hear about, because 60% of people live with particularly this one, is Alzheimer's. So that's why you hear more about that. And then, of course, you've got vascular dementia, which can be a result of brain injury or a stroke. You've got Lewy body's dementia, which some of the symptoms around that represent hallucinations, and there's other aspects of it. But then, of course, like I said earlier on, there's around 70,000 people living with young onset dementia, and meaning they're under 65. And of course, probably a lot of people would have heard recently in the last couple of weeks, Pauline Quirk was diagnosed in 2021 with a dementia, which she was 61 at the time, so she would be classed as someone living with young onset dementia, but it hasn't come out in the public domain until this week, and she's obviously nearly 65. But good for the families for sharing that, because it makes us talk about it more.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think you've hit on it. It's about talking about it. I think we are, because of we're quite closed as a race, we as a nation, we don't talk about things openly, particularly with families and that, and particularly with dementia. We're all scared of it. We're all terrified.
There's a fear. There's a big fear, and I think you know, I've known people that say, "Oh, my friend's got dementia, but I don't know what to say, so I don't go and see her," or she doesn't know who I am. And sometimes that is the case. Not everyone that gets dementia are going to forget their loved ones. That's not how it works all the time, but it does sometimes. But what we need to remember, and I think one of the important things, is to be with that person where they are in that moment, and to be in their reality. Obviously, if they've got sort of more moderate dementia and it's going on to advanced, it might be they lose their sense of self. So when they are trying to communicate, if that's verbally or in other ways, we need to try and be with them in that moment, rather than thinking, oh, we'll orientate them back to the present day. That's not helpful, because in that moment, the person that's living with dementia is wanting to discuss or share something about that moment that's where they are, whether it's when they were 20 or 25, and it's about being with them in the moment. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
That sort of leads me on to a question, actually, which is, you know, we're all scared about it. We don't want to talk about it, but there are so many people living with it, either themselves or living with people or caring for people. So if sort of top tips, you know, you said be with that person in the moment. That's so helpful. And that our friend, to be fair, that was an example. He loves photographs and also loves playing cards and games.
Yes.
So he has got a setup of mahjong and bridge cards, and I spent a lot of time just sitting there. It was great, just saying your turn, my turn, your turn, and just playing games. But it was a contentment there.
Yes.
And it was like I really understood that. So it was it was good.
And it's interesting. So you're talking about occupation here. You're talking about being occupied, and I think it's very easy for some people that they had a love of something, and then it's like, oh well, they can't do that like they did, so we won't do it. But actually, so say for example your friend, he wasn't able or isn't able to play it in the way that he might know, so it maybe doesn't make total sense to you. It doesn't matter. It's the act of doing it and being in the moment with, and knowing that person is occupied to the extent that they are stimulated. And one of the things I'm thinking about is it's just sharing information as it comes into my head, is I hate this term, challenging behaviour. So some people will say, oh, my dad lives in a care home and he's got to move because they say he's got challenging behaviour. it's not a great term because it's diminishing the person, but what it is around, it's around an unmet need. So if someone is being a certain way or being perceived as a certain way, it's about us. And I call us little private detectives trying to find out what it is that's happening for that person. They might have a urine infection. They might want a hug. They might be in pain. Their glasses may need a new prescription. They might be bored. So it's how do we support that person? So I guess that's one top tip to think about. Have a holistic picture about what that person's life is, what's important to them, and how you can occupy them so they feel important, retain their dignity. And we're all human beings. We've all got a life story and a history. And I think it's about how you are with them with that. But also one thing I do want to say before I forget is I want to give a big shout out to families and people that are supporting their loved ones with dementia. I know Deb's husband's family, are living with a dementia in the family. It's very, very complicated. It's complicated for the person living with it, but it's complicated for the person that's supporting them because it's a complex disease of the brain and there's no getting away from it. So be kind to yourself. It's easy for me to sit here and say, take some time out, go off for a walk, whereas people would say, well, I can't do that because I haven't got time. But even it's just have a half an hour on your own in your room and just trying to bring yourself back to where you are, because you can get lost and you can lose identity and your sense of self because you become a carer, which is the reality of it, even though we don't like to use that term. But first and foremost, that you're in a significant other, whether it's husband or wife, but you do take on that role. And also although we don't want to label the person, if you don't kind of go down that road, then you can't seek the support and the resources that's available out there. And some people don't want the resources, but to know that it's out there is important. And that's one of the reasons I did the book, because they're all true family carer stories, apart from one that's a composite story that I made up because I looked at the stories and what might have been missing, and I created another story to fill that out. But like you said, Richard, the book itself is very much accessible and easy to read.
It is,
and I think that's really important. And of course, it's illustrated by the amazing Tony Husband.
Well, we could just go on
we
forever.
Could talk,
but we do need to play another piece of music. So, what's your next choice and why?
I'm going to choose. I've chosen, should I say, "Hey Jude" by the Beatles. One of the reasons, I mean, if you ask me next week, I might have a different song choice, but this one seems relevant right now because my niece is at uni in Liverpool. Over the last couple of years, I've been 4 times with my sister. I absolutely love the city. Everything is there, but there's so many different areas that, you're at one, you're at the dock, and then you can go to Cavern Street, the Cavern, then, Matthew Williams Street, and then you can go to the Irish sector, and you've got the parks, and I just love it there. And when we went, 3 weeks ago, me and my sister, we went on the bus tour, which we hadn't been on before, the Beatles bus tour, and one of the final songs that the guy on the tour played on his guitar was "Hey Jude," and you don't need to know the words because it's da 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 da. So that's why "Hey Jude."
And here we go.
Make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her into your heart. Then you can start to make it better. Hey Jude, don't be afraid. You were made to go out and get her. The minute you let her under your skin, then you begin to make it better. And anytime you feel the pain, hey Jude, refrain. Don't carry the world up on your shoulder. For well you know that it's a fool who plays it cool by making his world a little colder. Hey Jude, don't
down. You have found her, now go and get her. Remember to let her into your heart, then you can start to make it better. So let it out and let it in. Hey Jude, begin. You're waiting for someone to perform with. And don't you know that it's just you? Hey Jude, you do. The movement you need is on your shoulder. Na, 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 yeah. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song and make it better. Remember to let her under your skin. Then you begin to make it better, 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 make it.
The Beatles and Hey Jude, and that's the penultimate choice of music from Gina Howard, our guest this morning on Hospital Radio Exeter. And we've just got a few more questions to ask.
Yeah, we do indeed. We've got loads, but we'll run out of time, that's for sure. Gina, you've told us about your book United, but I believe you've got another book on the go as well.
Yes, thank you for asking about that, Richard. Yeah, so when I need to say to start with that Tony Husband, who illustrated my book United, or our books, we worked on together on it, has sadly died in October 2023, which was a huge shock. He had a heart attack on Westminster Bridge, and it was a massive shock to everybody, family and friends, but also the creative industry and art, because he was an incredible artist. And actually, about a year after United was published, I'd said to Tony, I'd really like to do another book. And we started thinking about it, although he did say, hold on, Gina, let this go out in the public domain. Be patient, which isn't my greatest quality, because I'm like, on to the next thing. I remember somebody saying to me years ago, don't rest on your laurels, but I don't anyway, and I don't know why they said that, and it actually annoyed me a bit. But anyway, I don't rest on my laurels. I'm totally opposite. So I came up with a few ideas, and then about a year later we started talking about it again, and we talked about it probably a couple of months before he died, and then of course he died, which was so tragic. And I just thought, well, I'll never create another book, because for me my idea was around another illustrated book. And it's not just about finding an illustrator, because people think when you publish a book, or it's published by a publishing house, that there's loads of money in it, and that isn't the case. So I would need to have found somebody that's not driven by money, that's maybe been impacted with dementia, which would get it, is a great artist, and of course that I could work with. Didn't think that would happen. But then last year, United was chosen as one of 20 books in the country to be part of the Reading Well initiative. So it basically means that United, along with 19 other books, are in all the libraries in England and Wales. So I met the publisher at that launch, which was at the House of Commons, and I said, I really want to do another book, Andrew. And he wasn't adverse to it. And I thought, oh, that's good. Anyway, so then my friend said to me, Jo, and I support her husband who lives with dementia, she's actually a children's author, and her friend Mark illustrated those 3 books, which she self-published. And I'd mentioned about another book, and he said, why don't you meet Mark? I said, I'm a bit anxious about it because I don't know, or whatever. Anyway, I did, last August. Thought he was great. thought I could work with him. Brilliant artist. So over the summer, I put a proposal together for my next book, which was accepted in December.
Wow.
Shall I tell you the title?
Yes, do.
please, yeah.
When Time Aligns. Stories of Care from a Dementia Companion. And shall I tell you why I've chosen that?
Yeah.
So firstly, I'll break it down a bit. So when time aligns, this phrase feels reflective and poignant, suggesting moments of connection, clarity, or synchronicity in the often unpredictable experience of dementia care. And it draws curiosity and emotional engagement. I know that's quite detailed, but I'm probably going to put that at the beginning of the book because I would like to know why that was chosen, and I think that's really important and poignant, and it reflects what we've been talking about, doesn't it? Synchronicity and connection. And then the next part, Stories of Care, sets the expectation that the book is about personal human experiences and adds a warm and relatable dimension. And then finally, From a Dementia Companion, this part establishes the author's role, my role, creating a sense of trust and authenticity, and companionship is a gentle, empathic term, emphasising support rather than authority. So I know that's kind of a bit of a mouthful, but that's kind of teases and you know, really gets you to understand the title of the story. The difference about this book compared to United is a lot of this book will be based on my personal experiences working with families, but it will be anonymised.
Right.
And there will be some of it will be based on personal experience, and some of it will be based on research and contributions. So it will be short stories again because it needs to be accessible. It will be illustrated. There will be less illustrations in this one, and there'll be more narrative. I'm really excited about it. I've got a year to write it.
Excellent.
That
We look
sounds
forward
really,
to seeing it come out.
Yeah.
that's
Really
for sure.
do.
So all being well, it will be published in World Alzheimer's Month in September 2026.
Wow.
So maybe I can come back on then.
You can,
Certainly can.
yeah,
We'll have
you'd
you
be
back.
very
We'll
welcome.
book you.
Yeah.
We'll book you.
Well, we are running out of time.
We certainly are.
So we would like to know what your last piece of music is, what you've chosen, and why.
My last piece of music is Life on Mars by David Bowie. The reason I've chosen this one is because Tony husband, absolutely loved David Bowie. And when we almost finished the book, we met in London to go through some final bits, and we were talking about music and singing and stuff. And I can't sing, but I like to mess around, and I can improvise and be spontaneous. So I was just messing around and dancing around to this, and I said, "Oh, record me." So I'm dancing around to this, and he's recording me, and I asked to do the same. So I videoed him, and he's moving around to the lyrics, and I got it on video. I still have it. So when I think about Tony and I miss his great presence, I watch him moving around to Life on Mars, and I watch myself and how different we were and how funny it is, and that's why.
She could spit in the eyes of fools as they ask her to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go. It's the freakiest show. Take a look at the low man beating up the wrong guy. Oh man, wonder if you'll ever know who's in the best-selling show. Is there life on Mars?
It's on America's tortured brow that Mickey Mouse has grown up a cow. And now the workers have struck for fame, 'cause Lennon's on sale again. See the mice in their million hordes, from Ibiza to the Norfolk Broads. Rule Britannia is out of bounds, to my mother, my dog and clowns. But the film is a sad thing more.
Well, sadly, we've come to the end of our hour talking to Gina, which has flown by, and
It has indeed, hasn't it?
we just like to say thank you very much for Debs and Gina to come and joining us today, and it's been fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it has. So thank you very much, Gina.
Can I just say thank you so much for inviting me on? I've loved every minute, and at some point I'd love to come and talk more, because there is so much to say about dementia.
You're booked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone, and wherever you're listening to this, we hope that we've brought a little bit of sunshine into this rather rainy day for you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Is there life on Mars?